The September morning arrived cold across the Yorkshire moors. Eleanor Whitmore stood at her cottage window, watching frost dissolve against the glass. At 23 and unmarried, she was running out of time according to Thornfield village tradition. Her mother entered without knocking. "The chief councillor will be here this afternoon. You'll wear the blue dress." "Mother, I've told you—" "What you've told me matters very little. Harvest Festival is in 3 weeks, Eleanor. 3 weeks. In Thornfield, no woman over 20 remained unmarried past the harvest. It simply wasn't done. The village council, led by Chief Councillor Thomas Brennan, had made their expectations clear. Eleanor had met with him 2 weeks prior. "Miss Whitmore, your unmarried status has become concerning," he'd said. "You're educated, yes, but that doesn't exempt you from community expectations." "I haven't found love?" His expression had softened. "I married because our families agreed it was suitable. We grew to love each other over 43 years. That's how it works." He'd mentioned a new blacksmith then. "James MacLeod. Came from Scotland last month. Skilled worker. Keeps to himself." Eleanor had noticed the forge reopening. She'd seen the blacksmith once, tall, dark-haired, carrying an anvil as if it weighed nothing. That afternoon, Chief Councillor Brennan arrived with council members and the blacksmith himself. James MacLeod looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Mr. MacLeod has expressed interest in making you an offer of marriage," the chief councillor announced. Eleanor's mother made a small sound of triumph. Eleanor felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. "May I speak with Mr. MacLeod alone?" Eleanor asked. After a tense moment, the chief councillor agreed. 10 minutes, in the garden. Outside, Eleanor didn't waste time. "You don't want this?" "No," James agreed. "I don't." His honesty surprised her. "Then why?" "Because the council suggested it would help me establish myself here. Because I'm 31 and tired of living alone, and a practical arrangement is as good as anything else." He studied her. "And you? Why are you being pressured?" "Because I'm 23 and unmarried, which apparently threatens the natural order. Because my father died and my mother fears I'll end up like my Aunt Catherine, exiled to the moor." "Those aren't the only 2 options," James said quietly. Eleanor looked at him sharply. "What do you mean?" "The chief said I must marry before harvest. You're expected to marry before harvest. Those are the constraints. But they didn't specify how the marriage had to work." Understanding dawned. "You're suggesting a marriage of convenience. A practical arrangement. I get the council's approval. You get freedom from pressure. We both get left alone to live our lives. We maintain appearances when necessary, live separate lives when possible. We treat each other with respect and honesty." Eleanor's heart raced. "And after the harvest festival, we live as housemates who happen to be legally married. The forge has rooms upstairs. You'd have your own space. What it becomes beyond that is up to us." "The chief said I must marry before harvest," Eleanor whispered. James nodded. "Then my fire will be your home, in name at least. What it becomes beyond that is up to us." Eleanor looked back at the cottage where expectations waited, then at this stranger offering her something unprecedented, autonomy wrapped in conformity. "I need time to think," she said. "I'll be at the forge. You know where to find me." That night, Eleanor lay awake wondering if she was about to make the bravest decision of her life, or the most foolish. Eleanor found herself at the forge the next morning. Through the open doors, she watched James work metal, the rhythmic clang of hammer on anvil steady as a heartbeat. He sensed her presence and turned. "Miss Whitmore, did you think?" "All night." She stepped inside, welcoming the warmth. "Tell me why you really came to Thornfield." "I was working in Edinburgh under a master who believed tradition was the only teacher. No variation, no innovation. I left seeking freedom to work differently." He smiled without humor. "I was wrong about finding it here." "Thornfield is ancient in its ways," Eleanor agreed. "My father taught me to think, to question, which makes me dangerous." "Dangerous how?" "Women who think want things, want voices in their own lives. My Aunt Catherine refused the council's marriage choice. Now she lives alone on the moor, whispered about, excluded." Eleanor moved closer to the forge. "That's not freedom, that's exile." "So you're looking for a third option?" Your proposal suggests one exists, but how would we maintain appearances while living separately? We wouldn't live separately. We'd share this home, 3 rooms upstairs. You'd have your own, but we'd be seen together, attend functions together. Inside these walls we live our own lives. They negotiated for 2 hours. Privacy rights, financial independence, clear boundaries, conditions for ending the arrangement. There would have to be rules, Eleanor said. Written agreements. I'd insist on the same. Over the next days, Eleanor drafted a contract covering everything. When they met to review it, James read carefully, suggesting modifications, asking questions. This clause about finances, complete separation of earnings? Yes. What I make is mine. What you make is yours. They continued through every clause until satisfied. James signed first, then slid the document to Eleanor. She hesitated only a moment before signing her name in firm letters. What now? James asked. Now we get married, and find out if we're brilliant or insane. Could be both. The following weeks passed in careful performance. James called at Eleanor's cottage for proper courtship appearances. They sat stiffly, discussing safe topics, while her mother watched. She knows something's off, Eleanor whispered during one visit. Should we be more affectionate? James asked. I don't think I could manage affectionate. Tolerable, then. Despite the performance, Eleanor discovered James had dry humor and unfailing patience. The village fully embraced their courtship narrative, offering unsolicited advice about marriage. Let your husband believe he's in charge while you actually run everything, Mrs. Davies confided. Women need a firm hand, like training a horse, Mr. Hartley told James. They compared notes later during a walk. Like training a horse, James repeated, disbelieving. I should write these down. Mrs. Davies thinks I should pretend to let you be in charge. That implies I'd want to be. Control over another person sounds exhausting. He paused. My father controlled everything about my mother's life. She died young. I think the control killed her as much as fever. Eleanor felt something shift in her understanding. Is that why you left Edinburgh? Part of it. I never wanted to become him. Bitter, angry, isolated. I want no part of that power. 3 days until the festival, Eleanor said. 3 days until we become Mr. and Mrs. MacLeod. Having second thoughts. Constantly. You? Every day, but not about you, about whether we can pull this off. We don't give up, Eleanor said. We see this through. Together. Together, James agreed. Something had shifted between them, not romance, but recognition of shared purpose. They were choosing to face uncertainty as allies. The harvest festival dawned clear and cold. Eleanor woke before sunrise, her mind racing. By noon, she would be Mrs. James MacLeod. Her mother came in carrying the blue dress, eyes red-rimmed. I'm being foolish, it's what mothers do. I'm not going far, just to Mill Lane. But you're going nonetheless. Margaret touched Eleanor's hair. I wish your father were here. They dressed Eleanor together in a moment of quiet understanding. When Eleanor looked in the mirror, she saw what Thornfield expected, a proper bride. The ceremony filled the village square. Chief Councillor Brennan stood on the platform. The community gathered around. Eleanor took her place beside James, aware of every watching eye. The traditional words washed over her. Then, Eleanor Whitmore, do you take James MacLeod as your husband, to honour and obey? The word obey stuck in her throat. She thought about their contract hidden in the forge, the clause stating neither owed the other obedience. I do, she said, both lie and truth. You may kiss your bride. James leaned in slowly, pressed a brief kiss to her lips. It lasted 2 seconds. Eleanor felt it through her entire body. The crowd erupted in applause. They were married. The celebration continued with food, music, speeches about tradition. Eleanor smiled and played her part. Beside her, James did the same, his hand occasionally touching her elbow. I'm here. Hold on. As the bonfire was lit and the crowd sang, James caught her hand. Now, he whispered. They slipped away, walking to the forge in silence. At the door, James paused. We could keep walking if you've changed your mind. Have you? No. Then let's begin whatever this is. The living quarters were warm, lit by lamps James had prepared. Your room, he said, pointing left. I moved in furniture. If you need anything else, tell me. Eleanor found a simple but comfortable space. Her possessions had been carefully arranged. When did you do this? This morning. I wanted you to have a space that was yours. Something tightened in Eleanor's chest. Thank you. I'll be in my room if you need anything, or in the workshop. I often work late. James. She stopped him. We did it. We actually did it. A genuine smile spread across his face. We pulled it off. Now the hard part begins, making it work day to day. I think we'll manage. We've already done the impossible. We've found someone who wants the same thing we want. Which is freedom, respect, a life that's ours to shape. Eleanor lay on her new bed later, listening to James work downstairs, the rhythmic clang of hammer on anvil. This is home now, she thought. This forge, these rooms, this arrangement. This is the fire I chose. If this story is making you rethink everything about marriage and freedom, leave a comment saying, the best prison is the one you're never locked into. Let me know you're here. Eleanor woke to burning coal and fresh bread. She dressed and found James already working, his face smudged with soot. There's tea and bread in the kitchen, he said. Make yourself at home. She spent the morning setting up her father's writing desk, arranging account books. This was work she enjoyed, but Thornfield didn't approve of women doing. Here she could do it openly. Downstairs, the forge's rhythm continued. Around noon, James appeared. I need to go to the merchant. Do you need anything? No, thank you. After he left, Eleanor continued her work, but her mind drifted to their situation. They were performing a careful dance, playing roles when observed, living independently when alone. How long could they sustain it? That evening, they ate dinner together in awkward silence. This is ridiculous, Eleanor said finally. We should be able to do better than polite stranger conversation. What do you suggest? Actual conversation, real talk. We're partners. We should know each other. Over weeks they fell into rhythm. James worked the forge. Eleanor managed accounts, her reputation for accuracy spreading. They attended church together, visited Eleanor's mother, participated in village events. But within the forge, they lived separate lives. One afternoon, Aunt Catherine appeared. Eleanor greeted her with pleasure. So this is where you've installed yourself, Catherine said, looking around. Very practical. Does he know what he's gotten into? This was his idea as much as mine, Catherine smiled. Then I'm happy for you. You found what I never did, a way to exist within Thornfield while maintaining autonomy. I had to leave entirely. Do you regret it? Every day, and I celebrate it every day. Regret and relief coexist. Freedom is complicated, Eleanor. After Catherine left, Eleanor thought about consequences, about choices, about the life she was building. That night at dinner, Eleanor mentioned the visit. My aunt called our arrangement clever. It is clever, possibly too clever, James said. We coexist well, but I'm not sure we're actually partners. We're cordial housemates who happen to be legally married. Isn't that what we agreed to? It is, but I keep thinking. Home implies more than shared space. It implies connection, trust, maybe friendship. Are we not friends? I don't know. Are we? Eleanor looked at this man who had offered her freedom, kept every promise, never asked her to be anything but herself. I'd like to be, she said quietly. That night marked a shift. They began talking more, the formality dissolving. Eleanor learned James loved mathematics, read philosophy, had sharp wit. James learned Eleanor had taught herself carpentry, could calculate compound interest mentally, had opinions about everything. They were compatible, not romantically but intellectually, temperamentally, philosophically. November brought snow. Eleanor spent more time downstairs watching James work, sometimes helping organize tools. You don't have to do that, he said, finding her cataloging inventory. I like systems. Your record-keeping was chaos. Was? Past tense. You're welcome. James shook his head. You're terrifying. Efficient. They were comfortable now, easy with each other. The performance for Thornfield continued, but within the forge they'd become genuine partners. One evening by the fire, James asked, "Are you happy, Eleanor?" She considered seriously. She had autonomy, work she enjoyed, a home to shape, a partner who respected her. "Yes," she said, "I think I am. Are you?" "More than I expected to be." They sat in silence, fire crackling, snow falling outside. This is home, Eleanor thought. Not the building, but what they'd built together. No space to be themselves. Partnership based on honesty. Freedom that looked like conformity but felt like flight. Winter settled over Thornfield, bringing the true test. "No children yet?" Mrs. Davies asked Eleanor at the market. "It's been 4 months. One would expect signs by now." "These things take time." "Not usually." The suspicion was clear. That evening, Eleanor told James, "They're going to keep asking. They won't stop. Eventually they'll want explanations we can't give. What do we do?" "Maintain our boundaries. Tell them it's private." The pressure intensified. Eleanor's mother hinted about grandchildren. Chief Councillor Brennan mentioned family growth. The constant scrutiny wore on them both. "Maybe we made a mistake," Eleanor said one February evening. "Maybe we should have just faced exile." "You don't mean that." "Don't I? At least then we'd be really free, not pretending." "What's really bothering you?" "Everything. The questions, the pressure, the constant lying. Every time I leave this building, I have to play my role. And when you're here," Eleanor looked around, "here I can breathe, but here is becoming smaller compared to everything else." James was quiet. "Do you want to end the arrangement?" Panic seized Eleanor, followed by something like grief. "No, I just want it to be easier." "It won't be. We chose a difficult path. The question is whether it's still worth it." Eleanor thought about her life before James, the trapped feeling, the certainty she'd have to conform completely or be cast out. "It's worth it," she said, "even when it's hard. Then we keep going. We support each other. We remember why we chose this." In March, rumours circulated that Eleanor visited Catherine at odd hours. Her mother confronted her after church. "What are you doing at Catherine's so often? People are saying you're unhappy, that the marriage is failing." "I'm helping with her herb garden. James doesn't object. That's not appropriate. Your place is with your husband. James and I have an understanding. We trust each other." "That's not how marriage works. It's how our marriage works." The argument drew attention. Eleanor saw James across the churchyard, assessing whether to intervene. She shook her head slightly. Later, Margaret said quietly, "I hope you're right. For both your sakes." That night, Eleanor and James had their most honest conversation. "I'm worried we can't sustain this," Eleanor admitted. "The village won't stop pushing. They want certainty. They can't comprehend what we actually are." "Which is?" "Two people who chose partnership over passion, who value autonomy over intimacy, who are building something different." Eleanor took his hand. "I don't want to lose this, what we've built." "We won't. But we have to decide if we're strong enough to keep resisting." "Together?" "Together." April brought unexpected developments. Chief Councillor Brennan requested a meeting. They went with trepidation. "I've been observing your marriage," he said. "Your marriage is unconventional. Some find it troubling." Eleanor's heart raced. They'd been discovered. "But it's also functional. You support each other's work. You've caused no scandals. The forge has never been more productive, and Eleanor's bookkeeping helps village businesses." He leaned back. "I've watched families for 40 years. I've seen marriages that looked perfect, but were miserable. I've learned there's no single pattern for how marriage should work." Eleanor felt tears prickling. She hadn't expected understanding. "As long as you fulfill your obligations, how you structure your private life is your concern. But know this, the pressure about children won't stop. Whatever you decide, be prepared to defend it." Walking back, Eleanor felt lighter. "That was unexpected." "Very. I thought he'd demand conformity. Instead, he gave us permission to keep being ourselves." That night, Eleanor stood at the window overlooking the village. When you proposed this, did you think it would work? I hoped. I thought it might. But I wasn't certain. And now? Now I think we're proving that different doesn't mean wrong. That marriage can be redefined. My fire is your home, Eleanor said softly. I thought that was just a pretty phrase, but it's true. We built something together. A fire that keeps us warm without burning us. James joined her. And we'll keep building it. Keep protecting it. They stood together, connected but not touching. They'd chosen each other for practical reasons and discovered genuine partnership. Outside, late snow began falling. Inside, the fire burned steady, a light in darkness, a promise kept. The village would keep watching. The pressure would continue. But Eleanor and James had learned they were stronger together. Their arrangement worked because both committed to making it work. Freedom wasn't something you were given, Eleanor thought. It was something you built piece by piece, choice by choice. Sometimes it looked like conformity. Sometimes it required compromise and performance. But as long as you built it honestly, with someone you trusted, it was still freedom, still worth fighting for, still home. Spring arrived, bringing warmth and a subtle shift in how Thornfield viewed the MacLeods. The initial scrutiny faded as other dramas captured attention. Eleanor and James found themselves settling into something approaching normalcy. Eleanor's bookkeeping business flourished. Word spread of her accuracy and discretion. She worked from the upstairs desk, managing accounts for half the village's merchants. James's forge was equally busy, his craftsmanship earning respect across the region. They'd developed routines, morning tea together before work, dinners where they discussed their days, evening hours in the sitting room, James sketching designs, Eleanor reading or working accounts. Comfortable silence between people who'd learned each other's rhythms. One May evening, Eleanor set down her pen. James, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever wonder what it would have been like if we'd married for love instead of practicality? He considered this. Sometimes. But then I think, would someone who loved me romantically accept my need for solitude, my obsession with my work, my strange hours and stranger moods? Probably not. Exactly. What we have works because we understand what each other needs. Love might have demanded more than either of us could give. Eleanor nodded slowly. I think you're right. Though sometimes I wonder if we're missing something. Are we? We have respect, trust, companionship, shared purpose. Isn't that more valuable than passion that might fade? When you put it that way. That night, lying in bed, Eleanor realized something startling. She was deeply content. Not in the way romantic stories promised, no breathless passion, no consuming love, but in a quieter, steadier way. She'd built a life that was entirely hers, while sharing space with someone who enhanced rather than diminished her autonomy. Summer brought a crisis. Eleanor's mother fell ill with fever. For 2 weeks, Eleanor stayed at her mother's cottage, nursing her through the worst of it. James visited daily, bringing food and checking if Eleanor needed anything. On the 8th day, Margaret gripped Eleanor's hand weakly. Your marriage confuses me, she whispered, but I see now. He cares for you. Perhaps not in ways I understand, but he cares. He does. And I care for him. That's enough then, that has to be enough. Margaret recovered slowly. During those weeks, Eleanor saw how the village responded to James's attentiveness. They approved of a husband who supported his wife during family crisis. The performance worked both ways. It protected not just Eleanor's autonomy, but James's reputation. Autumn arrived again, marking their first anniversary. They acknowledged it with a quiet dinner. No celebration needed. A year, Eleanor said, raising her glass. We survived. We did more than survive. We thrived. Did we? James gestured around the forge, now truly transformed into home. Eleanor's books lined shelves beside his. Her accounts shared space with his sketches. The kitchen held both their preferences. The sitting room bore evidence of both their lives. Look at what we've built, he said, separately and together. That's not just survival. Eleanor smiled. You're right, we've created something rare, a partnership that doesn't demand we become less than ourselves. As winter approached again, they received news that Chief Councillor Brennan had retired. The new Chief Councillor, younger and more traditional, began making noises about proper family structures. "Here we go again," Eleanor said when she heard. But this time they faced it differently. They'd proven their marriage could withstand scrutiny. They'd built credibility in the community through their work and reliability. They had allies now, merchants who valued Eleanor's services, farmers who depended on James's craftsmanship. When the new chief councillor suggested Eleanor should focus solely on household duties, 5 village businesses sent letters supporting her bookkeeping. When questions arose about their childless state, Aunt Catherine quietly spread word about medical difficulties, a fiction, but one that silenced prying questions. They'd learned to navigate Thornfield's currents, to use the village's own structures to protect their unconventional arrangement. One December evening, Eleanor found James at his forge, working late on a commission. She watched him shape metal, still mesmerized by the precision and purpose in his movements. "Eleanor," he'd noticed her, "is everything all right?" "Everything's fine. I was just thinking about that day in my mother's garden when you offered this arrangement." "What about it?" "I was terrified, absolutely terrified. I thought I was choosing the least bad option." "And now?" Eleanor moved closer to the warmth of the forge. "Now I think I chose the best option, not because it was easy, but because it was honest. We built something real from pragmatism. That's rarer than building something temporary from passion." James set down his hammer. "I've been thinking the same thing. I proposed this arrangement because I was cynical about love. Now I'm not cynical. I just think love takes different forms. What we have is a kind of love. Not romantic, but no less valuable." They stood together in the forge's warmth, the fire crackling between them, and Eleanor felt the truth of his words. They loved each other, as partners, as friends, as 2 people who'd chosen to face life together on their own terms. "The chief said I must marry before harvest," Eleanor said softly. "And you said your fire would be my home." "It is your home, isn't it?" "It is, more than I ever imagined it could be." Outside, snow began to fall, covering Thornfield in white silence. Inside the forge, the fire burned steady and true, warming 2 people who'd learned that freedom and partnership weren't opposites. They were complements, when built with honesty and maintained with respect. Eleanor Whitmore MacLeod had found her home, not in surrender or exile, but in the careful space between, a marriage that was theirs alone to define, a life built on their own terms, a fire that would burn as long as they both chose to tend it. And that was more than enough. If you've watched this far, it's because this story touched something true. The struggle between fitting in and staying yourself, between what others expect and what you know you need. Leave a comment saying, "I watched this far," so I can get to know you and understand who really connects with these stories of courage disguised as conformity, of freedom hidden in plain sight. Hit that like button if this story made you reconsider what partnership can look like. Share it with someone who needs to hear that sometimes the bravest choices don't look brave from the outside. And subscribe, because the next story is waiting to show you another way people found freedom in unexpected places, another truth about building lives that look ordinary, but are quietly revolutionary. Don't miss it.